Good morning, students. In this video, we are going to start or continue from the chapter 5 Muslim League. We are going to start a new topic, and that is events leading to the formation of Muslim League. The last module, if you remember, we did all the various, you can say, causes or factors which led to the formation of the Muslim League. And there we have done most of the points, like the Mughal rulers had lost their empire to the British. So always there was an enmity between the Muslims and the British. They always wanted to fight against the British, and that is why British also accused them for the main culprits behind the revolt of 1857 and followed the divide and rule policy against them and favoring the Hindus. So that was also which was in a way created, that policy created a rift between the Hindus and the Muslims, and the two communities from there onwards started going far apart from each other. And then the relative backwardness of the Muslim community, because they were not giving any favor, they were not given favors by the British, and they did not send their children to the English or the British schools. So that also led them to lead them to lose on part of having a competition on the government posts and the vacancies and jobs. So unemployment, all the you can say economic and educational backwardness led them to even become more fierce enemies against the other community. So that is how all these things boiled up. And then came Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, who along with the principal of who formed MOU, Mohammedan Anglo-Oriental College, and along with that the principal over there, Mr. Beg, was one who was totally against it. So Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, who once favored Hindus and Muslims together in the nation, then later onward changed and said they are two communities who cannot live together. And that is why it is very important that we need to have their separate interests taken separately. It was later onwards that the demand for Pakistan was made up, but so far it was that they wanted the provinces to be different and their problems to be heard differently, separately. Even the education of history was done in such a way that Muslims were presented before the Hindus as totally the outsiders who have come and looted and plundered them, and it was taught to Hindus that the nation belongs to them and it was their own land, and so they should be the controllers. So that is how it was. The seeds of enmity were sown between the two communities, so that they totally turn against you can say proper staunch enemies of each other. After that, we can see there was rise of assertive nationalism, and over there also the programs conducted by them, they were totally in the line of Hindu culture, which made Muslims realize that they will always be favoring the Hinduism or Hindu culture people. In that case, they have no hopes for them once the Indian rule goes into the hands of the Indians. It will be under the hands of the majority people, the Hindus, and they will always be not favoring the Muslims, or will not be doing anything for the welfare of the Muslims. So that particular fear gripped them, and they felt that the longer they stay under the British, the safer they are, and it will be better for them to keep their problems and things properly done. Because later onwards, as Congress became even stronger and powerful and putting agitations, now British started favoring the Muslims in order to have an opposition against the Congress and keep them away from the Congress nationalist movements. So that is how we can say these were the various events which made certain situations that Muslims felt that they need to make their own political organization so that they can be heard properly, or they can have proper infrastructure of organization of how their demands are to be voiced in front of the British. So here we see the events that led to the formation of the Muslim League. There were certain events which happened in such a way that the Hindus and Muslims rift became even stronger, and now Muslims felt a strong urge to have their own political organization to put up their things. And the first under that was the Hindi-Urdu controversy. In UP, it was Urdu that was the court language, and official language, court proceedings, everything was done in Urdu. Later onwards, with the increasing demands, it was Hindi which was asked to be made as the proper court language. So the Muslims were totally against it, but the Hindus really wanted that Hindi to be one of the language. And as a matter of fact, to see and to stop that particular agitation, they decided that Hindi will also be included and Urdu will remain the official language, but Hindi and Urdu both will be given equal status. In Urdu, all the writing details, paperwork will be in Urdu, the spoken work will be in Hindi. So that is how it was equal status given to both. But contrary to that, it was not believed by most of the Muslims that this could be done, and they really were against all this particular giving importance to the Hindi. Then next was foundation of Muhammad Anglo-Oriental Association. Under this Muhammad Anglo-Oriental College, there was a nationalist, or you can say a communist particular group, which were working to make their own organization become stronger and put up their demands, and Congress was a strong opposition. So British wanted an important particular organization to start up as a competition or opposition to the Congress, and that is why they supported this Mohammedan Anglo-Oriental College Association, and that is how this association came into being. And it was the motive of this Britishers was to promote, make all these people in the association believe and to promote their loyalty towards British, and they in return would be helping them, listening to their problems. So with this particular political attitude, even Muslim community and the group of association people members, they also felt this particular thing, that if they make a proper organization which will be working, showing its loyalties to the British, then it will be even better. So they now demanded, or they now thought strongly on making the framework of the infrastructure, which will be an all India Muslim organization. Aligarh politics was the same. It was Nawab Mohsin ul Mulk who was the one who was leading the Aligarh movement after the death of Sir Syed Ahmad Khan. So it was the Aligarh movement worked to instill in the minds of Muslims the spirit of loyalty. They made them believe that they should remain loyal to the British, because only then their demands could be fulfilled, because once the British leave and the Indian rule comes into the hand of the Indians, then they do not have any hope for their bright future. When the Hindu-Urdu controversy raged in 1900, Nawab was the secretary of the MAO college, and he agitated or criticized this. He was much agitated and criticized the government decisions on granting equal status to Hindi and Urdu. But even at that time, government did you can say scoff him a lot for this particular behavior. But later onward, Muslim leaders became angry, and they suggested that a political organization of the Muslims should be set up, so that their voice can be put up in, you can say, a huge number all together in unison, and that would matter a lot. That would have some weight and some importance will be given to it. Then the government, the British government, will have to listen to it or have to take certain steps in regards to it. Next we see partition of Bengal. Partition of Bengal was given under the particular thing that it would be between the to manage properly, but we know that everybody knew that it was only to divide the unity of the Hindus and Muslims and to curb the growing nationalism in Bengal. And to check the rising tide of nationalism, the British won the support of the Muslims by saying them that we have always promised you to give you a Muslim dominated province, and in division of the Bengal it was given to them that the next province which has been made is a Muslim dominated province, and that was the thing which they had promised to Muslims, and that was given to them. So with this particular notion, Muslim community got this idea that partition of Bengal is good, because in that it was a Muslim dominated province was given to them, and their wish has been fulfilled. So gradually they withdrew from the agitation and the national movement, and this was a severe blow on the national movement on the partition of Bengal. Muslim deputation now was called, a particular group of people were now went on as a deputation to meet Lord Viceroy, who was the Viceroy at that time, Lord you can say Minto. And when they met Lord Minto, they went to Shimla, and there on October 1, 1906, they made following demands from him to be followed, and it was later onward seen that those demands were followed by the government. It was representation of the Muslims, but not on the basis of their population, but on the basis of the political strength or political importance of Muslims in the history of India. They also demanded for separate electorates, constituencies for the Muslims in terms of elections for the legislative council, and even for the provinces also. Preference to be given to Muslims while nominating members to the Viceroy Council was another demand. They wanted to be equal in number, or at least more in number, in the Viceroy Council, so that even they can secure their rights. Then reservation of the seats for the Muslims in all the state services were required, demanded, and more state aid for promoting new Muslim universities were requested from the Viceroy. So the Viceroy received them properly and assured them with expressing his sympathies and assuring them that all the required steps would be taken accordingly to safeguard their rights. So now when the Muslim League formation was almost coming to its formation and in its final structure, we see the success of the Muslim deputation was the important part, and it motivated the Muslims to start a separate political organization of their own. At this time, Nawab Salimullah of Dhaka took the initiative, and in December 1906, when eminent Muslim leaders assembled together in Dhaka, and they all came together in connection with the Mohammedan Anglo-Oriental College Educational Conference, he arranged a meeting to consider such a proposal that we should have an all India organization to voice up the Muslims' grievances or problems to the government. So the proposal to form a central organization was accepted by nearly all the Muslim leaders, and an all India Muslim League was now to be framed. It was set up on December 30. Remember, they met in December sometime earlier, and by the end of December, 30th of December, it was almost set up, and the first president or the presidentship was given to Nawab Salimullah. Aga Khan was elected as the permanent president of the Muslim League. And the headquarters of this particular Muslim League was in Aligarh, because it started from the Aligarh movement or Mohammedan Anglo-Oriental College, all from there. But its central office was later onwards shifted to Lucknow in 1910, because that was a more central part of the Awadh. Now here we see what were the main aims and objectives of the Muslim League. Main aims and objectives were, first of all, to promote among all the Muslims of India a support for the British government, that they are going to show their loyalty towards the British, and to remove any misconceptions regarding the intentions of the government in relation to the Indian Muslims, that they are not favoring them, or they are going to do something bad for them, or they are not going to look after their grievances. It was to promote this feeling that British are going to always help and support the Muslims. So that was the main aim and objective of their league. Next was to promote and protect the political rights and interests of the Muslims, and to represent their needs and whatever they aspire for to the government, simply in the mild and the moderate language, so that it doesn't turn out to be like a direct forced expression or a strict demand. It was in a very simple, mild, moderate manner that they are requesting again and again for a particular thing, and then the government might listen to it and pay attention to it. So they always wanted to prove themselves that they are good, and they have faith and believe in British, and they are going to be supporting British. Next, we see to prevent the rise of feelings of hostility between the Muslims of India and other communities. That was also one of the reasons they wanted to check the growing rift and this gap between the Hindus and the Muslims, that to be checked, so that there are no more oppositions, open revolts between the two communities. Otherwise, none of them would be benefited. They wanted their own particular rights to be, they were competing with the other community, but they wanted their rights straight away to be fulfilled right from British government, and they have nothing to do with the other community. So that was one of their important objective. Then we see the impact of the Muslim League on the national movement. First of all, League's role in the beginning, it was not related anyways to the national movement. The major part was it sought greater representation of Muslims in different services, different offices, councils and leagues, and that too not on the basis of the numerical representation, but on the basis of the importance, historical importance. Its political activities were directed not as much against the foreign rule as they were totally against the working of the Congress. Though they were not openly revolting it, but they were worried by the actions of the Congress, and they wanted things to be done that favor them. its leaders belonging to upper class had nothing to do with the problems and grievances of the common masses. So you can say this Muslim League, just like Congress, it was a group of the elite Muslims or the high class Muslims who had least knowledge about the lower or the common Muslims, and that is why their main aim was not to solve the problems of the Muslims, but rather to solve or have their political powers growing on, so that they can make the maximum use out of those political powers given to them. Government support to the League was the second important, you can say, impact. With the help of Lord Minto, the Viceroy secured its demand for separate electorates. The provision for separate electorates was given in the Minto-Morley reforms in 1909, and it was intentionally given over there so that to make the Muslim League realize that British is working for them, and this was also to create a bigger gap between the two communities by favoring one community in following whatever demands they had asked for. Then next was, this is important, I'll read it for you carefully, listen to it, the phase of rapprochement. In 1910 to 1913, it was new forces emerging in Muslim League politics, and some of the leaders realized that rapprochement with the Congress, coming back with the Congress, is much desired, because there were several factors which had made the Muslims turn against British, not in India but in the world scenario. First was, Britain was very hostile to Turkey in the Italian wars, and they favored the Balkans countries at that time, not favoring the Turkey, the Muslim place, which was the highest seat of the Muslim ulemas and sultans, the Sultan of Turkey. And it made a large section of Muslim leaders critical of British policies. I said ulemas, it is the Muslim Islamic caliphs. So Sultan of Turkey was the caliph, highest seat, and he was disrespected. The annulment of the partition of Bengal in 1911 was also one of the things which was seen as a detrimental to the interests of the Muslims, because now it was not on the basis of religion, but on the basis of linguistic differences and districts. So that was also believed by Muslims that they are not working anywhere for their benefit. They are just trying to make their own profit or their own benefit out of the rift between the Hindus and Muslims. They understood this in a simple manner. So that is how they decided that it's no point just following and listening to some of the rich class zamindars and nawabs from the Muslims, rather who are talking for their own benefit. They have nothing to do with the benefit of the Muslim people in general. So most of these Muslim leaders were not at all happy with the working of the Muslim League, and they felt that once again they need to go back to the Congress. And another important thing was, some young scholars were influenced by the Deoband School of Muslims studies, and they were inspired for nationalist movement, that they have to do something for the country, and that is why they felt that the Muslim League was more organized organization to put up their demands for their benefit, but not for the country and country's freedom. So some of the important leaders from here were Abul Kalam Azad, Habibur Rahman, Hakim Ajmal, and Mazhar ul Haq. So they all came out of it, and they went even in Congress also, and they turned out to be some prominent leaders fighting for the nationalist movement of our country. Later we see the attitude changed, and the Congress and League did come together after a long span of division, and that was when Turkish king was defeated, and all those things were bad treatment was meted to him by the British. Muslims in India also were resented. They were angry with the British, and as a result they started a Khilafat movement. Later onwards, this Khilafat movement was supported by Congress also. They incorporated it in their particular non-cooperation movement as one of the most important demands, and this was one of the events which marked the reunion of the two different groups of Congress and this Muslim League. That means the Hindus and Muslims coming together, and they came together in one of the particular pact that was signed between Congress and Muslim League, and that pact is also known as the Lucknow Pact, which we are going to do in detail after this. And it was signed in 1916. According to the pact, Congress accepted the concept of communal electorate, that they will be given separate Muslim electorates. With this, Congress, which were till now saying they are a secular party, accepted that Muslim League is a Muslim party and they are the Hindu party. So that is how a proper communal electorate was accepted, the concept, and it subsequently added to the communal bitterness later onwards. Lastly, we see the partition of country carried on the communal lines was the result of this particular rift, which was created by the divide and rule policy of British. That happened in 1947. In much further chapters we will be doing. Right now we will be moving to the second and the most important part of the chapter, and that is the Lucknow Pact. But as according to the time mark, we will be doing this Lucknow Pact in the coming up next chapter, next module. So before that, you go through this chapter, this particular part, and be prepared. Lucknow Pact would be the last thing for this chapter that we'll be doing in the next session. Thank you.